Mr. Nick made regarding, we had had a discussion about plant and weight and things like that. And from the physician point of view, it made a lot of sense to me what he was talking about, but that goes back, and I just want to make that correct.
The key here throughout the process was really every time that you wrote a rule is considering, you know, obviously we're going to come and present it to the department is considering the elements of non-diversion and safety, because that really gets to the core of what we're trying to do is how do we ensure safeguards along the cultivation process, the manufacturing process, the distribution process, which allow for the accountability and the insurance of non-diversion throughout the process. I think key to an understanding of what we did is the definition, the proposed definition of what a medical marijuana plant is for purposes of an unlawful act. The statute is silent as to the definition of a medical marijuana plant. It leaves us with two terms, what's medical marijuana and what's plant. Medical marijuana does have a definition in Colorado law, both in Amendment 20, Article 18, Section 14, and in the definition section of 1284. So medical marijuana, a plain definition is marijuana that's sold and grown and used pursuant to the purposes of the amendment, which is marijuana that's used for medicinal uses. That's considered medical marijuana. A plant is a rooted plant of the genus cannabis. So a fusion of the two brings us to the logical conclusion that a medical marijuana plant is a plant with active medical marijuana properties, with active cannabinoids and flowering and trichomes. So keep that in mind when you're reading this particular memorandum of support and how that definition then fits into the process of cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution. And I'll end with this. Our thinking was, how do we reconcile, like I said, the practical realities of plant count and when that becomes weight. So how do we make sure that the safeguards are there and that it's a practically feasible methodology to account for a plant and tether it with a particular patient, which is what, of course, we have to do. And when does that then become usable product and weight to be weighed against our legal capacity to hold those 2 ounces? And we felt that we came up with a workable process that ensures non-diversion and that reconciles the need of the industry as well.
I think Sheriff Alderton had a comment. Had his hand up on something.
Yeah, just a question on D, when it talks about the 6 medical marijuana plants that are in the flowering stage, does that conflict with the Constitution and the 6 plants free to be flowering?
And it took us a little while kind of conceptually to get our arms around it. And the breakthrough really came with the conversation with Matt when we realized, and it's almost common sense, you've got to give lose the forest for the trees, but that we are a creature of statute. And the licensees in the Colorado Medical Marijuana Code, participants are not protected by the Constitution. That was by design. We are not caregivers per the Constitution. Our patients, thankfully, are protected by the Constitution, and home caregivers are limited to the black letter restrictions of Amendment 20, the free vegging and the free flowering. 1284 in this particular section, 1243.39014E, that specifies the unlawful acts, does not make that distinction between the vegging and the flowering plants. It simply says 6 medical marijuana plants. So that is the black letter that we had to work with. But I guess the key point is that in thinking about this and in thinking about the roles and responsibilities that we as licensees have, is realizing that, of course, we're subject to Colorado law. When it comes to this particular approach, we are creatures of statute, and we are subject to the Colorado Medical Marijuana Code, and not those particular provisions.
Without having an opportunity to review this, if you can point me in the direction of how does this interrelate entirely to these definitions of manufacturing, cultivation, distribution?
What?
Couldn't hear you. How does this interrelate or reconcile if you have definitions, though, it's basically the same
Sure.
terminology.
Well, we looked at Title 18 at the criminal statutes and reconciled those particular definitions. If you look at the definition of marijuana in Title 18, it's very clear to say that it's a usable form for preparation or mixture thereof. So that was kind of another breakthrough, is the word usable is used throughout both the statutory language and the constitutional backdrop. So, it was really a matter of taking the language that was there and applying it to the realities of marijuana cultivation. In particular, on the vegging side of things, there's a very, very high turnover rate in vegging plants. They have no value in and of themselves. We do account for the circumstance where that potential, if you will, that inert medical marijuana plant is taken out of the working process, placed into the medical marijuana center to be sold as a clone or as a plant in and of itself. In that particular eventuality, and the definition does account for it in B, it becomes a medical marijuana plant that counts against your total legal limit because you pulled it out of the working process and you assigned it a value and incorporated it into your inventory. So that's the sort of fail-safe that we have. Part A, obviously, your flowering, active, usable medical marijuana plants count against you. And part 2 is if you take that plant out of the working process and you assign it a value by entering into your inventory for sale as a clone to either your patients or other MMCs, then that number does count against your legal limit. So,
In terms of cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and dispensing, those are defined in Title 18. If those also are defined in Title 12, do your definitions just simply apply to Title 12 and the rules and regulations that are
Sure.
created? If there is any inconsistency between those two definitions?
right. Well, that's sort of the good thing about our endeavor here is that we're not rewriting the statute, we're writing a rule. And a rule that, is applicable to a particular pool of licensees and applicants that have themselves waived any number of constitutional protections to work under the auspices of the DOR. So, if we pinpoint what we're doing here is that we're not rewriting Title 18, we're not searching for a new definition of what is out there already in the black letter law. What we're doing is, for the purposes of the Colorado Medical Marijuana Code and the group of applicants to whom that applies, we're working to build a set of regulations that assure non-diversion.
Is there some language in either 1284 or your proposed rules here or definitions here that kind of states that in plain black letter rules, law?
Sure. Well, and I think it was what I started off with, Section 12, Title 1243.3202, 1B1, it requires that the state licensing authority ensure the regulation of the cultivation, manufacture, distribution, and sale. And so that particular, cite to law gives the DOR the responsibility then to promulgate such rules. And as we know, they also have the opportunity to consult with the industry center.
Yeah, if I may, I think there's an easy fix here because I think there is a valid point on the table. And it's much easier for me to just say something along the lines that for purposes of reconciling the 6 plants and 2 ounces for definitional purposes only in 1284, cultivation means, manufacturing means, and so forth. To make it narrow as it pertains to this act, so we don't have a conflict with the
That
Title
certainly
18.
is our intent.
Yeah, and that's an easy fix. Who's that? Doc?